All right, YouTube, this is Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit back on this Friday morning. We got to talk about this story out of Texas. I'm quite sure some of you have heard about it. It was where a teen was stabbed and unalived at a track game. Now, there is a racial component because the suspect is black and the victim is white. But remember this, they're both teenagers, right? 17. Now, the story I'm going to show you so you can determine for yourself how you feel about it, because there are a lot of people who are trying to capitalize on the racial dynamics so that they can create a narrative that follows an agenda that they've been on for a very long time, which is to create racial tension, to create division, to create chaos. So they look to exploit these type of stories. Now you think about it. I live in Detroit and Chicago is our neighbor. You think about how many times our young people lose their lives in maybe a month's time, if you're watching the news. And nobody is outraged about the sheer numbers of young people losing their lives to violence, drugs, chaos, taking their own lives. And people don't want to address the problem because it's constantly being exploited by the media. They constantly want you to keep thinking racial, racism. So you don't focus on the capitalism, the materialism, the globalism, the things that are really going on that's causing these tensions. Now, you're going to see, like I said, the race hustlers, they're going to be out there weaving their narrative because it fits their agenda. But then we have kind of like normalized it in the black community to where at football games and basketball games, there's a potential for violence. We've normalized that to a certain degree. You don't think so? If you're honest with yourself, you're a black person, and you go to a basketball game or a football game, you know there's a potential that there may be violence because we've normalized it, you know? And do we want to actually look like we're exporting it to other communities because we've lost that much control of our own? But we keep sending in these politicians. That's why I showed you the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, what was going on in Chicago. Chicago got more people unalived than anywhere else in the country, and he's down there fighting for immigrants. New York Mayor Adams, he just came out and said that he was being squozed by the deep state. He went to talking like he had just got out the Illuminati since he's been pardoned. But now we're going to look at this story. And it's a tragic story. So it's for fair use under the 1976 Copyright Act for commentary and educational purposes. Check out the story.
And welcome to the Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. First up, a star athlete in Frisco, Texas, killed after getting stabbed after a confrontation with another student. Tonight, another student is in custody as well. Here's what we know so far. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf was at ULI championship track meet Wednesday morning. According to investigators, 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony was allegedly told Metcalf was sitting in the wrong seat when he pulled out a knife and stabbed Metcalf in the heart. His twin brother tried to save him, but he later died at the hospital. Tonight, Greg Dupree of TLA NBC Now has more on the case. But first, we hear from the victim's father, who says he has forgiven his son's alleged killer already and shared his last words to his son. Here's a report from Fox.
He was going to turn out to be a great individual and impact this world with positivity.
17-year-old Austin Metcalf was voted MVP of the Frisco Memorial High School varsity football team. The linebacker held a near-perfect GPA and was in the National Honor Society.
He was on the right track. He was doing everything right. I was so proud.
Jeff Metcalf never imagined that his son's future would be cut short.
I'm still in shock.
Wednesday morning, Austin Metcalf was at a District 11 5A track meet at Kirkendall Stadium. Around 10 a.m., Frisco police say 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the chest after some sort of fight. Jeff Metcalf says it was Austin's twin brother, Hunter Metcalf, who tried to save him.
And his brother was holding him, trying to hold the blood in, and he passed. My son watched his brother die in his arms.
It's unclear how Anthony got the knife into the meat or what exactly led up to the fight. Anthony is now facing first-degree murder charges, and Jeff Metcalf
It was the best weekend ever.
Is only left with memories.
I was able to watch and be blessed so much. But having both my sons are amazing.
When Jeff Metcalf was diagnosed with cancer 9 years ago, his boys were his strength. Now cancer-free, it's his faith that's keeping him strong.
And when I kissed his forehead today, as his body was cold, I ran my fingers through his hair. I told him it's not goodbye. It's see you later. I'll join you at some point too, son. You just beat me to this place.
Wednesday night, the family's church opened its doors for the community to gather for a prayer vigil to honor a young man whose life touched so many.
But I know he's with the Lord. And I take comfort and peace in that.
Amelia Jones, Fox News.
Right here in Frisco where I live. And to be honest, this is uncharacteristic of this community. As a tragedy nonetheless, and it just goes to show you that something like this can happen anywhere. But from what I've been able to gather is that there was some type of dispute at this track meet, which I guess neither one of these.
Now I want to stop where he said it just goes to show you that something can happen anywhere, because that's a Freudian slip, because things like that are only supposed to happen where? In the ghetto. Where? In the black community. That's what he meant. It can happen anywhere. It's not supposed to happen. The very fact that it's happening is problematic. How we view government, law, neighbor, patriotism, all these things are at question. How do you even view patriotism?
Kids were participating in, and it was altercation or disagreement over a seat, and I guess a argument ensued, and Anthony pulled out a knife and stabbed the young man to death.
And Austin, the victim, his twin brother was there. And
Right.
It's understanding that he witnessed all of this, his twin brother, which is like a part of him being murdered.
Right. Yeah, Austin Metcalf's twin brother was right next to him, and he said that, by the time his brother had been stabbed and he turned around to see what had happened, it was too late. He couldn't do anything to save him, other than just hold him until he passed away. It's a very sad thing to happen, to lose your brother, especially a twin brother, just like that in a moment, in a blink of an eye.
And of course, this story has caught the nation's attention. What is it like there in your area after this occurred there? What are people saying? Are they in shock as well?
Oh, yeah, the whole community is shocked. They're, reevaluating their security procedures at schools and at school events, and it made me think, we have metal detectors and all kinds of security measures at other sporting events throughout the country. Does this mean now that we need to do the same thing at these high school events? To me, in my opinion, I think we should. If it can save one life, by all means, we should have some type of extra security procedures in place at these high school events.
Greg, what we had here was a simple disagreement, a simple argument. How can it elevate to something like this where you're accused?
The liberals say defund the police, but then it gets so bad you need security at the schools. See, when you look at mainstream media and how the Shields are going to spin this story, because of course they have always profited in trauma. Trauma is their currency. So you have to look at the story for yourself and see what the people that's in Texas are saying.
Of stabbing someone to death at such a young age. Those victims very young.
Well, I don't think it's as much as the argument of what the argument is about. I think it's where we are today and where our children are today. There is an extreme level of violence being perpetrated by a lot of these younger kids. You know, Isaiah, we did the show last week on the 764, and that cult and how violent that cult is, and it's all involving young kids. It's just where we are. The level of violence being displayed by these kids today is unheard of, you know, but I don't want to say it's a new normal, but it appears to be. You got everything going on from incidents like this to kids killing their parents. You know, it's nothing.
What do you think is contributing to this, and what can be done about this? Obviously, if you are a parent, you know, that hasn't been murdered by your child, because we recently had a case where a young man in the northern part of the United States, and I wanted to take a look at this, and we probably will, killed his mom and his stepdad recently. So, I mean, what can parents do short of not becoming a victim themselves? What can they do with these children they love? But these children, in some instances, will turn on them and kill them.
Exactly. And well, parents have to come to the realization that they need to be more cautious and more aware of their children's behavior and their children's attitude. What is the level of aggression in your child? You know,
I'm going to stop there for a second. Do you see how these two guys are describing the scenario with children, with young people? They turning on their parents and this, that, and the other. Are you listening to them? Now you add that to gender reassignment for your children, terminations of pregnancies to the 8th month, uncontrolled border, steady flow of drugs and narcotics, steady flow of weapons into our communities. So when they exploit this, it has to be because of the racial element.
Child overreact in certain situations, get increased, very angry as a result of something that has happened. You need to monitor those type of things, and unfortunately, you have to be prepared as a parent. If your child has that level of aggression where they become a threat to you or anyone else for that matter, you need to be prepared to call law enforcement in or somebody to come in and deal with that situation. Because as you know, as we said, you had these tragedies where these parents are being killed by their kids. Some of those parents, I guarantee you, believe that they could handle the situation or the situation wasn't that bad. You can't take that chance today.
And of course, what you just said was very important, that most parents need to realize or should realize. In some instances, you have children that you simply can't handle. And it's okay. Even though you're the parent, you have to be honest with yourself and say, I can't handle this kid.
Right.
And no one should hold them in judgment, and they should get the help they need, right?
Right. Well, when a kid picks up, and this is in my opinion, when a kid picks up a deadly weapon, they're no longer a kid. Because now you're taking adult actions and you need to be handled as an adult and face adult consequences. It's that simple. Otherwise, if you keep treating kids with kid gloves, you're going to end up with a lot more tragedies just like this.
All right. Greg Dupree, private investigator, security consultant for TLAC Now in the Dallas area, also in the Houston area. Thank you for joining us with this update And give my best to your community. Obviously, this is a tough loss.
It is very tough.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
It's terrifying.
Did you hear they said the Dallas area? They down there in Jasmine Crockett's neck of the woods. So we haven't seen her speak on it yet, or I haven't seen her speak on it yet. But did you hear how at the end they were describing these kids? What kids? What kids? And then you have all the memes of their government officials saying how oppressed they are. How we're under fascism and Nazism. They're going to take your food stamps and your bridge cards and your Section 8. They're going to take everything. They're going to have us picking cotton. See, they're always going to exploit the racial element. Every time. So this is all I got for you this Friday morning. Detroit's HPTV coming out of Detroit. Like, share, and subscribe. Support the channel. As always, salute to all patriots. Peace.